right, Matt Crumpton, we're in Dealey Plaza.
Dealey. Yes.
All right, fair enough. Coming from the guy that can't pronounce Slumberger.
Yeah, that's okay.
Anyway.
Right, I can't pronounce anything. It has to do with New Orleans. I have no chance.
Perfect.
Way off.
Okay, at my rehearsal dinner for my wedding, my brother, who was my best man, got up, turned to my soon-to-be wife and said, "Hey, Kim, now that you're going to be a member of the family, I can let you in on the family secrets. Number one, Grassy Knoll assassin, it was my dad."
Really?
Yeah.
Were they serious?
I don't know. We'll see what happens with his will.
Yeah.
So Matt, you're awesome. Solving JFK is blowing up. I mean, it's awesome stuff. I love it. We're in Dealey Plaza. I'm just gonna go rapid fire. You tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Okay, the official version has shot number one, wildly missing Kennedy, and it hits down here at the Triple Underpass.
Right.
Hits Teague, and then shot number two and shot number three hit Kennedy. I think that's bizarre.
Right.
I think you hit the first shot's going to be the closest. What do you think?
They kind of actually debated it because the FBI, in their original report, it was all three shots hit somebody. The first shot hit Kennedy in the back. Second shot hit Connolly. Third shot was a Kennedy headshot. So that's the FBI story. But then they found out about James Tague down by the overpass here, and that's kind of disputed as to whether that was the first shot or the second shot. But either way, the point is you got to account for that because the bullet hit the concrete, scraped up, debris came up, and his ear was bleeding. And he talked to one of the cops, I think it was Buddy Walther, man, people loved a vroom over here. Maybe, you know what?
Big D.
Maybe they're worried.
Yeah,
maybe they don't want to get
I
jacked from the
front.
Dude, yeah.
That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, it's like the speed limit here is like 70. Just go. It's like fine.
Welcome to Texas.
X to X, it's 70. From marking the spots where
Exactly.
you shot. When you look at the trajectory of the Tague shot, that's where I can see people saying the Daltex building, because it does if you look at the 6th floor trajectory to where the Tague shot was, and if you look at the Daltex, they're overlapping. The Daltex building's behind
right.
So really, it could be either. And you've got Braden, the mafia guy, who's found in the Daltex building, and he had just come to visit H.L. Hunt that day.
Right.
And it's like, so, okay, but there's no report that he had a gun. There's nobody inside the Daltex building heard shots. So, but who knows? Now here's what's fun. Since we're on the hill, this is sort of you talk about the two Oswalds. The headline here is that 5 witnesses, including a sheriff, Roger Craig, saw a guy run out of the back of the School Book Depository building and come running down this hill and get into a light green Nash Rambler just minutes after the assassination.
Yeah.
And all 5 of those people said that 3 of those people said that the guy that did that looked identical to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Now, didn't one of the witnesses say the driver was Jack Ruby? Did we go that far?
Julia Mercer
says
that she was here in Dealey Plaza and there was traffic. It was a couple hours before, or maybe it was 9 or 10 in the morning. The assassination's around 12:30. And she's here. She's pulled over to the side in traffic, and she's stopped behind, I believe it was a green truck, but I forget what it was exactly. But she said the guy that she saw was Jack Ruby. And now they gave her a bunch of photos, and she identified it as Jack Ruby.
That works on Law and Order.
So yeah, and I forget the details of it, but the way that they went about giving her the photos to choose from was in such a way that you go, okay, that's compelling. But I don't know how that's a puzzle piece. How does that fit in with everything else? I don't know.
Right. Okay, while we're here too, literally about 15 feet from us is where Zapruder was standing with his camera. Give me all things Zapruder.
Well, it's interesting that they have no interest of maintaining it. It's kind of overgrown now. It
really is. Yeah, he can't stand there.
A big observation I have. Zapruder, the other observation I would have is it's directly across from the X. So Zapruder is right there with the front row seat for that headshot. I mean, it's truly directly across from, if in fact this X marks the spot where 313, I believe it is the Zapruder film frame where you have the headshot. That's right there. And the other thing is Zapruder said, I believe Zapruder said this, could be wrong. I'm a citations guy, but the shots came from over his shoulder. I know the Newmans, who were right down here, the family that had ducked down, they said the shots came from over their shoulder on that little hill. It came from over here on that little hill.
Because, 30 some odd people said they thought the shots came from the Grassy Knoll, right? Something like that?
There have been quantitative studies done looking at all the statements, and I believe it's like 44 said Book Depository, 41 said Grassy Knoll.
Yeah.
And a lot of them said both.
Right.
And I think it was both. I think there were shots fired from the Book Depository, and I think there were shots fired from behind this fence, which is right behind where Zapruder was.
All right, so we're on the Grassy Knoll in kind of the structure. Give me your take here.
So there's either a film or a photo that shows somebody walking back here just after the shooting or right around the time of the shooting. And I had always, I've been here a few times, but I think I had thought that this was all open all the way through. And in this little room, there's like little nooks you can hide behind. There's even like a little hole that you could totally shoot out of.
Yeah, all right, Jacob, come over here and shoot over our shoulder real quick and look at this.
Yeah, there's like a nook you could totally hide behind. But here's the counter argument that I think would be persuasive. There's a people lined up on the street right here. So if you're gonna stand right here and shoot, even though this is pretty shielded and there's not a lot of people over there, I would think somebody would have seen this person. Now, interestingly, Buell Wesley Frazier in his new book, he's the guy that gave Oswald the ride to the school book depository, allegedly had curtain rods.
Right.
That whatever. He says that he saw a guy that was dressed fancy walking around in this area with a gun.
Yeah.
And he never mentioned it until he had a book that came out. Isn't that something?
What was the advance?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so, I don't know. I would think if I had to make a spot call on this, I don't think it's likely that someone would have shot from here, because I think somebody would have actually, I think there would have been,
you need a getaway path, and you don't really have a getaway here.
Yeah.
But let's go to the getaway path.
Let's go to the getaway, because that's where the person flashing the Secret Service badge was, at the exact point where people were coming up the hill.
All right, let's go check it out.
So yeah, this is the spot where several witnesses, 3 or 4, said that immediately after the shots were fired, everyone starts running up the hill. That's weird, huh? I wonder why they did. Why would they do that?
Why is everybody running up the hill?
But so they start doing that, and Officer Joe Smith, I believe Sheriff Seymour Weitzman, and a few other folks, they came up and they said that they saw a person with the Secret Service badge that said, "Get out of this area, I'm Secret Service." Now, what's interesting about that is that Ed Hoffman, the deaf-mute superstar witness, a lot of people don't believe him. A lot of people just throw out Ed Hoffman's testimony. But if Ed Hoffman is right, that's game, set, match. He's literally describing what happens. We'll talk about it here when we go over there. But one of the things he says, he confirms the story about a guy showing a badge and over here as people were coming up the hill.
Yeah, and supposedly the part of Hoffman is, he told his family like that weekend, right? That's at least the family lore, right?
Yeah, he told
it was contemporaneous.
Yeah, that's right. The key, and we'll go look at it here, the big question with him is whether or not he could have seen it from his vantage point.
All right, Matt, so we're basically in the parking lot behind the Texas Book Depository, got Elm Street right there. Yeah. Tell me what happened.
Well, we're looking right at this X, which is the spot where Kennedy's head was shot. And in terms of the badge man photo, it's about right here. It says on the back of all these things, "This is the place." That's pretty. Trump did it. That's fun. That's hilarious. The Mary Mormon photo, some people think, and I think it's potentially compelling, I'll tell you why here in a second, that this woman, Mary Mormon, who was in the infield area there, took a picture that captures the assassin standing there with a hat on, because there are 4 railroad witnesses, SM Holland and company, that are right over there on the railroad bridge. And they said at the time of the shots were fired, they saw a little puff of smoke come out from under this tree, right? And people always say, a puff of smoke? Is this the Civil War? Is this the Revolutionary War? Were they loaded?
Was it a musket?
Was it a musket? And it's like, they didn't see a puff of smoke. What did they see? They saw the shot. You know, when you fire a shot, like you can see, like if you're watching the area, they came running over here, and there were cigarette butts and footprints right here, but there was nobody here. SM Holland, that later spoke with this guy Josiah Thompson, who wrote 6 Seconds in Dallas, one of the first books to look at the assassination from a scientific perspective. And Thompson came here, stood where Mary Mormon was standing, and he had SM Holland, the railroad witness, stand at the spot where he thought the smoke came out from underneath, and have a hat on.
Right.
And it looked just like the Mormon photo.
Did it really?
It's just a little photographic artifact, and you can see it, and it looks exactly the same. Now, this is a grainy picture.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
it's not super high res.
and you blow it up, and it's even grainier. Yeah.
There's room for interpretation.
Artistic license.
By no means is it a home run. But yeah, to the extent there's a Grassy Knoll shooter or a shot from the front, this is one of the prime spots it would be. Another spot, people say the railroad overpass. We can go look at that. Some people say the South Knoll. I've never heard any witnesses talk about seeing anything on the South Knoll. Another thing to note here in this parking lot, so there's a railroad tower over there, and that's where Lee Bowers was. He's the operator up in the tower. These trees were not nearly as thick then as they are today. He could see this area. He says that at the time the shots were fired, he saw a puff of smoke and a flash of light. Or no, he saw a flash of light.
Yes.
Something caught his eye. People always say, well, why didn't he, because he told Mark Lane that in his 1966 documentary. People always say, well, why didn't he say flash of light to the Warren Commission? And the answer is, if you go read his testimony, at the time he's talking about that, he's talking about what he saw and starting to describe it. Alan Dulles cuts him up and asks him another question and changes the topic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I believe it's Dulles. It might have been someone else, but that's sort
Probably
of
that little weasel Arlen Specter.
And then Lee Bowers then dies in a single car crash.
One of the mystery.
And people say, well, he had a car crash. Psycho. What do you want? Like everything's not a conspiracy. Fair enough. But all bets are off when the CIA admits before the church committee that they have a heart attack gun.
Right.
Are we supposed to believe they've never used it? Maybe they just make things and never use them. The things they make.
One of my favorite sayings that I've
Don't kill me.
One of the favorite things I've seen recently is they did bad things in the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, but they're not doing it now.
Right.
Yeah, give me a break.
Stopped. Well, yes, sure. So anyway, yeah. But another interesting thing about this parking lot, there were, at the time, right before the shots, there were 2 cars driving around back here, and Lee Bowers saw one of those cars had a walkie-talkie. Oh, Dark-Complected Man had a walkie-talkie. Oh, interesting. Right. Real quick, I just want to talk about what Ed Hoffman says he saw.
Oh, yeah.
So Ed Hoffman, he says that he saw a guy dressed in a suit standing here and a guy dressed in work clothes standing, like right over here, okay? Like right in this area. And the guy in work clothes has a bag, and he like a work bag, and he takes something out of the bag, puts it together, and throws it to the guy that's dressed in the suit. Okay, he said it looked like a pipe. He thought it was a pipe.
Thought it was a pipe. Okay.
And then he sees the guy put it up, and then he realizes it's a gun, and then he sees the shot fired. The guy fires the shot, tosses it to the guy, the railroad worker guy. Railroad worker guy breaks it apart, puts it in the bag, runs down the tracks.
Right. So Hoffman is deaf, he's mute, doesn't talk very well, right? Contemporaneously tells his family that weekend over dinner or something, he makes multiple attempts to go talk to the Dallas police.
Right.
Yes. And eventually gets to the FBI.
If you look at this file, the FBI says, yeah, you did come talk to us. Let's look here. Let's look at our report. It says, you talked to us and you said that you just remembered you saw nothing. So if you have to believe the FBI fabricated the document to believe Ed Hoffman.
Okay.
That's the period. But once you understand that Lyndon Johnson has told, everyone, including J. Edgar Hoover, that if they investigate the assassination and find that there was a conspiracy, then it could lead back to the Soviet Union. Then we have to do a first response. Then it's going to lead to nuclear war, total Armageddon. So save your country, save the world, and cover this up.
Right.
So that's how people are always like, well, how could they? You have to have all these people in on it. They were in on helping. They were in on saving the world.
Yeah.
What do you mean in on what? They're not in on some nefarious secret. So yeah.
Well, and knowing Lyndon Johnson and his morals,
Right.
I could see a telegram to the Kremlin saying, "Thanks, guys, we're good."
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, we can here. Let's come over here. We'll get to Ed Hoffman.
So Ed was standing somewhere over here. Was he not watching the president, or was he?
This grass, this is all overgrown. This isn't how it was today. But he was on the second one. See how there's one that's like brownish and there's one that's like whitish?
Yeah.
He was on the second, but it's not that far over.
That's not.
And he was, and when you get over there, they're at the same height. Okay?
Yeah, and that's not hugely ridiculous. All right, we're at the exact spot where the Umbrella Man was and the Dark-Complected Man.
Yeah.
You be Dark-Complected Man.
Yeah,
I'm Umbrella Man. I'm doing that. What was their story?
Dark-Complected Man, no one knows. No one's ever determined who he was. It's a mystery. To me, it's one of the biggest mysteries in the case. But he's got his fist up right as the shots are happening. Umbrella Man is pumping his umbrella up and down. Umbrella Man later came forward as a guy named Stephen Louis Witt to the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And he said he was an insurance salesman, and he had an office nearby, and he came down that day. Basically, he was protesting Kennedy's father being the ambassador to England and
the appeasement of
Hitler
by
appeasing Hitler. Neville Chamberlain.
I don't
know if the umbrella has to do with it, but
Chamberlain always had an umbrella with him.
Right. Okay.
That was the thing. Now the talk is that there was some kind of communication, right? Pumping the umbrella is signaling the shooter.
Well, he sits down, Dark-Complected Man, after the assassination happens. And I'm looking at this. This is literally where he was, because it's the pictures in the background. He sits down right here. We're sitting in the exact spot where I just sat on my sunglasses. That's fun. So we're sitting in the exact spot where Dark-Complected Man was. And then you see her. You want to sit down next to me?
Oh, yeah.
There's a film of this guy, and he turns like this. Like he's got a walkie-talkie in his hand. Now, it's a little grainy, but it looks like there's a little antenna. Okay. So maybe it's a walkie-talkie, maybe it's not a walkie-talkie. Umbrella Man walks that way. And by the way, we never conclusively identified that Umbrella Man was Stephen Louis Witt. He just said he was.
Right.
It's not like you can really tell for sure, but we still don't know who this guy was. They sit down this close to each other.
Well, and Witt's story of being Umbrella Man was he didn't know the Dark-Complected Man.
Right.
Which is like...
He said the Dark-Complected Man just mumbled, they done shot some folks. And that's all.
They very much had a Silent Bob and Jay vibe to them, the two of them hanging out together.
For sure. But if you've just witnessed the assassination of a president, are you going to go and sit down on the curb as if you're waiting on your mom to pick you up from soccer practice and you're the last kid that day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, so Umbrella Man goes this way, Dark-Complected Man gets up, whatever this thing was he had in his hand, maybe it's nothing, whatever, he then puts something behind his back like this, tucks it into his back, and walks under the overpass, never to be seen again. So we have no idea who that guy was. The idea, people say, well, what were they doing? It's not a poison dart. If anything, it's a signal for, that, hey, he hasn't been shot yet. Keep shooting.
Keep shooting. Okay, so tell me this. This is an entrance wound. Where did it come out? Because the exit wound back here, I think that's
sunglasses. Sorry.
I think that's the bullet they pulled off the stretcher, right?
Yes.
So
probably.
where did if this is an entrance wound, where did it exit?
That's a great question. And that's one of the best arguments on the Warren Report side of things.
Right.
But I think the answer is that it went into his body and they just didn't recover it.
And they didn't fish it up.
Yeah, Doug Horn, I believe I asked him that question. And he's sort of like, on the critic side of things, he's the medical guru, I would say, him and David Mantic. But he basically said that it, must have been in his body cavity.
Yeah.
And
it would hit the backbone and go down because they put the trach over on top. Now,
the autopsy wasn't that thorough, so they didn't know that there would have. They didn't know that there was a shot there because of the tracheotomy.
Right. Until they called.
Right.
They called Dallas.
But they never. The Dallas doctors never. I don't know that they affirmatively. They talked about the tracheotomy. I don't know if they told the Bethesda autopsy doctors that there had been a shot in the front. But they did all say their statements were there had been a shot in the front. In fact, Dr. Perry, who was, I believe, the main attending surgeon that did the tracheotomy, said that it was a shot in the front during a news conference, and he was told not to say that again. And then he just changed his story. And then later he told his peer at University of Washington, where he was teaching as a medical school, he told his peer that they made him change his story.
Well, and I told you the Yates family story when you and I did the podcast originally.
Yeah.
Dad and Earl Rose, because Earl Rose was the medical examiner for Dallas County.
Right.
He should have done the autopsy on Kennedy because Oswald would have had the right to have that as part of his defense. And Earl Rose was in the emergency room. He saw it, and Dad and Earl got along really well during med school because Dad was there in '65.
Right.
So Dad's talking to Earl after class. A student walks up and says, "Hey, Dr. Rose, can I ask you about the Kennedy assassination?" Dr. Rose says, "No, everything I've said is in the Warren Commission. That's that." That guy walked off. It was just my dad and Earl Rose, and Earl Rose goes, "That was no exit wound." So,
wow.
And Earl Rose knew.
So he was there. He's an eyewitness.
He was an eyewitness. He was there. He knew. And I called years later when I'm at Rice writing my senior thesis, and Earl Rose was at Iowa, I think, the University of Iowa. And I called and I said, "Hey, Dr. Rose, Chuck Yates, my father, Charles Yates, had you in med school in the 60s. And he said, yes. He goes, I was quite fond of your father. And I go, well, he liked you a lot too. Can I ask you a question about the Kennedy assassination? I'm writing my paper on it at Rice. I told the story. Dad's told me that. Is that true?" And he hung up.
Didn't he say, "I bet you'd like to know"?
Something
like that.
Yeah. There's a version of that story too that gets told, but I did actually make the phone call.
Wow.
And I did actually talk.
He didn't definitively deny it.
Yeah. And people give Lyndon Johnson such grief about yanking the body out and getting home, but I'm kind of with Johnson on that because Jackie was not leaving without JFK. So I'm actually okay with Johnson, and I don't know that that's a conspiracy.
I think the reality is, look at every movie in the 90s and early 2000s, national security. They just take your car, they'll do whatever.
Right.
So it's not surprising at all that in the name of national security, they would say, we're taking the dead president's body with us.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. That certainly does not show conspiracy at all.
And one of the CIA's hypothetical situations was the Russians invade, and the first thing is they shoot the president to cause disarray. So Johnson, he didn't have an iPhone, so his ass needed to be back in D.C. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he thought there was, he said, "Are the nukes in the air yet? Are the missiles in the air yet?" He thought that it could have been a Soviet plot. So.
All right. We got 7 more minutes. What do you want to do? Teague, or do you want to go talk about could Oswald have actually shot from there?
Have you heard of Prayer Man?
No, who's Prayer Man?
Well, supposedly it's Oswald. This guy, Bart Camp, is this great researcher from the UK. He went through everyone who's in this photo, this alt-gens photo. It shows a guy standing here on the steps, and Bart Camp looked at all of the witness statements and determined that, nobody reported any unknown people being in the building.
Right.
There's a separate conversation for them. There was a different shooter up there. But also, everybody was accounted for in the photos of the people standing in the front except for that guy. And everybody else is accounted for, and they said where they were in the building. So in other words, it couldn't be anyone other than Oswald. Unless everybody's mistaken who was standing there with somebody that they didn't know.
Oh, that's wild. I hadn't heard that.
He literally went person by person.
We're sitting by the fountain. We're on the other side of Elm Street from the Book Depository. Why is this important?
This is the corner of Elm and Houston. Yeah, Elm and Houston. We're right here by the fountain. This is where Howard Brennan was standing when he says he saw Oswald in the 6th floor window right here on the corner. And you can see it as the one that's got the little box there in the window.
And the window open.
And if you just look up from right here where we're standing, you got your back, you're resting on this. By the way, good job, Howard Brennan. Great spot for a parade.
Right.
Everybody, always says Howard Brennan, he doesn't know anything. But listen, Howard Brennan knows how to pick a hell of a spot.
That's
a great spot.
This is a good
fountain
spot.
right here. Anyway, so you look up from here, could you see somebody if somebody was in the window? Yeah, I think so. You can see if the window's open, especially, you can see if someone's in the window.
Bright day.
Could you tell if it was a guy or a girl? Probably.
I'll give you that.
Could you tell the color of their skin, if they had dark skin or light skin?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So I think Howard Brennan saw a young white guy in the window.
Right.
The idea that you would be able to identify someone's face from this far away that you had never seen before. If it's somebody you knew and they were up there, you're like, wait a minute, is that, you know what I mean? Maybe you could, but you've never seen somebody and you're looking at them up there, you're just glancing.
So how did his identification go down? Was there a lineup that he chose Oswald out of, or was
he went to the police department that night and said that he had seen a white guy in the window. Now he actually said that, I forget the exact details of it, but the way that he described seeing this guy, it's actually not possible that once you get up there in the building, it's not possible someone could be standing the way that he described it.
Didn't he say they were leaning out of the window?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I looked at that, but the way he described it is not actually possible from where you are. But I think he saw a white guy there, and so he goes to the lineup and he's got all the people, and he does not identify Oswald. Now the Warren Commission comes, and he's given a chance, and he goes, "No, I don't recognize any of these guys." The Warren Commission comes, and when they interview Brennan, he goes, "You know what? It was Oswald. It was, and I knew it. I knew it was Oswald, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know if there was a conspiracy and he was involved with other people." So that's the official story. But look, whether or not he changed his story or whatever, that does undermine Brennan some. The main point is, I think if you look up here, it'd be helpful to have someone's face there in the window so we can see, but I just don't think you could. Look, there's people above there. The museum's open. You see people milling about.
Right.
I can't see any faces really. I don't know.
And the other thing too is it wouldn't be weird for somebody to be in that window. So I don't know that I would stare at.
Exactly. It's not like you're like, oh, here he is.
Yeah,
here he is. Yeah.
Okay, so the one thing I want to bounce off you that I think I bounced off you on the first podcast, but we're actually here. The craziest thing about where we're standing right now is Houston comes down. This is actually a 111 degree turn. This is not 90 degree.
Right.
So Secret Service rules were violated. The president can never make more than a 90 degree turn. And my whole point is, if you're Oswald and you're right there and you're shooting and you're not triangulating with other shooters, why do you not shoot right there when the limo in effect comes to a stop, making that turn? That to me seems like the easy shot, not maybe or maybe not shooting through branches down Elm Street.
Yeah, no, at a target that's going away from you.
Exactly. And I don't know if you can appreciate. Yeah, it's an 11% downward slope. So
it is. They would have had to completely turn. Now, if Oswald was just crazy and he was just, you can't explain crazy,
right?
Then maybe he missed it or whatever, missed the opportunity. But the Warren report actually said that the slope, because the gun was a little off, the scope on the gun was a little off, that the downward slope actually helped. That was their final conclusion. But yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, that's one of many little sub points to consider.
You know, Matt Crumpton, on kind of my top 10 list of bucket items, walking Dealey Plaza with you is on it. I've enjoyed this. See you later.